Russell Vought right now, the former Office of Management and Budget Director under President Trump. Russell, good to see you. A lot of spending here and a lot of tax hikes. The irony being, even though a record number and amount of tax hikes, they don't come close to footing the entire $6.33 trillion bill between the rescue plan, the jobs plan, the families plan, lots of plans. Even with those tax hikes, not nearly enough to cover them all. What do you make of that?
It's insane, Neil, and I think the reality is that those are just on what's on paper. But if you look at the Obama administration, they had about $650 billion in tax revenue increases on paper. That led to $3 trillion in revenue loss because the economy tanked because of their policy agenda. This administration is basically the next one from the Obama administration. And so I think all of these job-killing taxes are going to really cause us to have not just an inability to pay for the spending, but a really damaging economy.
Well, you're not saying the economy tanked under Barack Obama, right? I mean, after the meltdown, it actually went up. It picked up considerably. It could have picked up a lot more. You're right. It was tepid by recovery standards, but it didn't tank. It went the other way, right? The markets and everything else went with it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we had slow growth, and when you saw President Trump come into office, we were now starting to talk about 3% growth once again. And I love yesterday you had Ro Khanna on, who was now talking about we were going to grow our way out of this economic situation that we find ourselves. But we got lambasted for suggesting that we could be anywhere near 3% growth, and now they're talking about growing ourselves out of this, even though they're declaring war on energy, regulating the economy, and raising taxes.
Fair enough, Russell. You know, it is interesting that the markets today, notwithstanding, have been, continuing their winning ways under this president. So either they don't have the same fears you do about all of this spending, or they're dismissing and saying it's going to be very stimulative to the economy. The economic numbers look very strong. Retail sales numbers look very strong. That is the wind at the president's back tonight. What do you think of that?
I think that's right. I think they're still trying to ride the wave and the momentum. I think they're following the Fed chairman very closely and watching his press conference today. And so even many of the critics of the Fed currently are saying, let's ride the momentum for a lot longer. And at some point things will change, but we're not quite there yet. And I think that's where the market is as of right now.
You know, with all of this spending, I mean, it can't help but goose the economy. We've seen what happens when you give people $1,400 checks. They spend them. We had similar type reaction when you were in the White House with the president. I'm wondering if that is sending a signal to Democrats that the more they do this, the better the response. In other words, that a majority of Americans like this, spending, I guess, as long as they don't have to pay for it. But what do you think?
I think once we went through the pandemic and the economic shock, we made the staggering numbers of trillions something that was relatively normal. And now we were dealing with a once in a generation situation. We had to throw a bazooka at it. And I think now we're faced with the reality where the Biden administration can just put forward proposal after proposal that rounds to $2 trillion, and it's completely normal. But I think the American people are going to be onto it. I don't think they want a transformed federal government that takes over all of their lives and takes on the responsibility to have universal pre-K and continue to dump money into education. We already have sizable education spending in this country. So I do think it will lead to an awakening on the American people. But I think that we're seeing an ongoing legislating and proposing in the pandemic era where $1 trillion is normal.
Well, of course, you guys were no strangers to that, right? I mean, maybe for perfectly valid reasons at the time, Russell, but of course you guys built up deficits and debt with abandon as well, right?
Well, again, you've heard my defense before. I mean, we were dealing with a pandemic and an economic shock that we were going to throw everything we could at it. But we were proposing $1 trillion in savings that Congress did not take us up on. And unfortunately, we've lost that opportunity to have that conversation with Congress. That spending was building up, but that spending was building up prior to the pandemic. I mean, we had a very good economy, and prior to that, it was a record low unemployment economy. But deficits and debt were building fast and furious long before COVID came along, right? Neil, we were the last president to put forward a balanced budget, even over 15 years. We're proud of that budget. We would welcome a bidding war on balancing the budget at this point, and unfortunately, that's not where the Biden administration is headed.
All right, Russell, thank you very, very much. I want to explore that a little bit more detail with John Barrasso, the White